To her at the very beginning, this school grew and grew and grew, and look at what a kind of school it is today. It's a great school because of the efforts of great teachers. So Mrs. Bergesen, this is your day. I know Mrs. Bergesen, she lives in my neighborhood, because she's a friend, because when I first heard about the school and I was thinking about coming here, I asked her if I should, and she said, "We have the best kids in the world." That's what she said. So here I came, and I haven't regretted that decision for half of a second, because we do have great kids, and they are here. You are here. And we're all here to celebrate Mrs. Bergesen. I want to introduce a few people first. Mrs. Bergesen has a great family, and over there on the corner, there is Mr. Bergesen. You want to wave, Mr. Bergesen? Mrs. Bergesen has 3 daughters. She has grandchildren. Will you all wave? I just want to say at the end of my remarks, because we have so much to do, that this school is special because it is a school where people matter. Now you all saw our MCAS scores. Everyone knows our MCAS scores are great. That's not what I brag about when I brag about the school. I brag about what a kind and loving place this is for children. And it's that way because of the first days of the school when Mrs. Bergesen and people like her made that the focus of the school. How many of you have had Mrs. Bergesen? Then you know what I'm talking about. It is a special school because it is a fun, warm, and wonderful place to be. Mrs. Bergesen, you've done so much for all of us. You've imprinted the kind of school on this institution that it should have been, and it is because of you. So thank you. You may know, you can't know Mrs. Bergesen without knowing that she loves music, that she sings all the time. When we ask her what the attendance in the room, she sings who's absent. She sings up and down the corridor. Sometimes they have to shut the door. But all the time, it is just a hallmark of our school. The fun, loving, singing, happy atmosphere. So we're going to have a fun, loving, singing retirement assembly. And so, without further ado, we are going to... Does anyone know the musical Bye Bye Birdie? Yeah. This is a little longer title. Bye Bye Mrs. Bergesen. I'm going to start by asking Mrs. Davis, her 4th grade partner, and ask her to come up.
There are many jobs in life, but I'm not sure there are many like being a teacher. Where else can you come into contact on a daily basis with so many interesting people, such as yourselves, with an opportunity to impact their lives in a good and meaningful way, and an opportunity to learn from them, too? Of course, society has all sorts of jobs where people come into contact with each other. Office workers, store workers, restaurant workers, doctors, nurses, lawyers, bus drivers, etc. These jobs are important, but I venture to guess that the average such worker does not have as many meaningful contacts with others during a typical day. The contacts tend to be briefer and less consequential. Then there are people who are so widely admired for what they do, like movie stars, rock stars, and sports stars, that you would think that those people had touched our lives personally. But such people don't usually know you individually. They don't really have a lot of meaningful contact with fans in the outside world unless they choose to do so. So being a teacher is kind of different, and it's really cool, but it's not for everybody. Being a teacher is a calling. You choose to be a teacher because you want to be with children and try to have a positive impact on their lives. And you're willing to do it, even if it means you'll never be as famous as a movie star or a rock star, and you will never be as rich as Bill Gates. I venture that Mrs. Bergesen could have been a star on Broadway had she chosen to pursue that path. Mrs. Bergesen is someone who made that choice at a time when you children were not even a glimmer in your parents' eyes. Think of how much time will pass between the time you were born and the time you will be a senior in high school. That is how much time Mrs. Bergesen has given to our school, trying to make it the best place it can be and trying always to teach what fourth grade teachers have to teach in a way that was enjoyable and memorable. I have known Mrs. Bergesen for almost 10 years. She's been a wonderfully supportive teaching partner and mentor through all those years, always helping with the core knowledge materials that I needed, giving me ideas on how to be a better teacher and how to teach and maintain good discipline in my classroom. I know that I would not be the teacher I am without her guidance and help. But just as importantly to me, we have enjoyed a very strong friendship. She has given me good sound advice over the years with all sorts of issues. And I hope I have for her too. We've laughed over funny things that happen at school and in our classrooms and consoled each other when things have been hard. Whatever job you have in life, you need to have a good friend there. So that you're really satisfied in your job. And Mrs. Bergesen has contributed to my job satisfaction in a huge way. Mrs. Bergesen has told me many interesting stories over the years about you students and your classmates. She talked about your hopes, fears, and dreams for all of you. She cared deeply about every one of you and was proud of your accomplishments. You were all like little sailboats out in the sea, and she always wanted to be sure that you did not crash on the rocks or sink, but that you that you could trim your sails and head out to the open sea confidently and optimistically. Luke Haig, when he came to the school, she kind of took him under her wing. She was concerned. He was new. When you join in fourth grade, it's hard. And here he was class president this past year. Sean Lockhart, she learned very early, keep him busy. Just keep him busy. Kate Stavely, I mean, I just remember, Judy saying that she's like the Energizer Bunny. She just goes and goes and goes. Joe Clark, she saw a dramatic quality in you, and you played a part in her immigration play that was so cute, and I hope you pursue a career on the stage. Everybody had their special qualities, and she noticed them all. We've been very lucky to have such a loving and dedicated teacher at BFCCPS as Mrs. Bergesen. Please join me in the count of 3 in giving her 3 good old-fashioned Middle Ages huzzahs. Okay? And that's what you would say to your queen in the Middle Ages. So, 1, 2, 3. Huzzah! 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 Now, speaking of the Middle Ages, my class is going to sing a little song for you. It comes from something called our Middle Ages Songbook. The songbook all started when I thought it would be fun to write some songs that contain information about the Middle Ages. That would help students who are musical learners to learn some important facts. So I started with a song called Part of That World, where a bunch of peasants in the Middle Ages are singing about how they want to be nobles and live in castles. It was to a Disney tune from the Little Mermaid, because I figured a lot of kids would know that tune. And I followed it up with a song called Attila the Hun, which is to the tune of Three Blind Mice. Again, because I thought it would be easy for the kids to sing. So Mrs. Bergesen loves music, and so she was very eager to write some songs too. I'll never forget when she came in all excited that she had a new song that she really liked. I asked her what the tune was that she was using for her song, And so like Mrs. Bergesen, she said, Mame, which is an old Broadway show from the 1950s. I know a lot of kids knew that tune already. But as you know, you should know, it has turned out to be one of the favorite songs from the Middle Ages songbook. It's all about monks, the religious people who lived in monasteries in the Middle Ages, devoting their lives to prayer and many times living apart from society. They were just about the only people at the time who knew how to write. But they did something that we would consider quite strange. They actually wrote their words without spaces between them. Spaces between words only came later on. So now I'm going to ask my class to come up and join me for our rendition of Monks.
Christopher. You may have seen me pacing downstairs a couple of days ago. When I heard that Mrs. Bergesen was retiring, I thought that I should bring a message from the Middle Ages. Since I am a monk, I know what this scroll says. It says, "It is not what is poured into students that counts, but what is planted. They may forget what you said, but not how you made them feel. It is clear from this big celebration that you have made children feel very good over the years. Congratulations, Mrs. Bergesen, and we hope you will visit us often."
We have some people who are very important to the school that you don't see. They work in the background, and they are very important in terms of many things that make the school a success. We all know that teachers are the most important, but the Board of Trustees is right up there because they are the parents who meet and do all of the things necessary so that we have smooth openings and smooth functioning schools. And we've been very fortunate to have an excellent board of trustees. And just as an aside, I'm going to introduce the chairperson of our board of trustees, and she is retiring as well. So this is a retiring day, but I would like everyone to give a warm welcome to Mrs. Lori Clemens.
Thank you, Dr. O'Malley. Mrs. Bergesen, over your time here, you have had the opportunity to impact countless lives. The lives of your colleagues, the lives of the board, the lives of the parents, but most importantly, the lives of your students. Sometimes you get to see the impact of that right away or during the course of the year. Sometimes you never get to see the impact of it, but it's there. It's there in every single student who has gone through this school. And for those of you who were at graduation last night and heard Lucy Hemingway speak, she gave testament to the impact that the teachers in this school have on the lives of each and every student, although you may not see it at each time. So I want to thank you for all that you have done for our students and for our school. I know our musical program would not be what it is today without your influence. I did think of trying to arrange a chorus from the board, but didn't work out too well. So thank you for all that you have done. In the beginning, when the school was first starting, the most important thing, as it is today, is the mission. Without the mission of the school, it would be a very different place. You embraced the mission, and most importantly, character education. It's something that you model each and every day. It's something that you instill in your students, that you teach them to make them better people as they go through life. Most of the assemblies we award leaves in the forest of virtue, and today is no exception. I'm very pleased on behalf of the Board of Trustees to present you with a golden leaf in the forest of virtue. It would be too difficult to try to single out one character trait that is more important over the others. You've spent the last 17 years recognizing them in your students, and it's our pleasure to recognize them for you today.
Little rearrangement of the furniture. Thank you, Mrs. Clements. Thank you for the board. Mrs. Bergesen and I live in the same neighborhood, and she and I have been friends with her husband for years. We've taken trips together, and sometimes you see people who are teachers, and you say, I wonder what they're like on the outside. On the outside, she is just as nice as she is in here. That's why she's so special. Next on our musical Bye-Bye Bergie. Mr. Benjamin has been a very busy man, and he is prepared. We had graduation last night. We had our assembly earlier this week. Like all of the teachers, consider this a very special part of the week. And so he has done some pretty special stuff for this assembly. So, Mr. Benjamin. special. Thank you, grade 4. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin, who rearranged and rewrote and made that happen. That was very special. We didn't have the music department that we had today, but we started with the idea that music was very special. And we had one teacher who was the music department for the whole school, who had to teach and had to do all the music. And because of that great beginning, we are now one of the best music programs in the country. In 3 years, one of the nationally best music programs. And it all comes from the work of Mrs. Bergesen. She would have to teach her classes and run the musicals and sing her songs. And from that, just happy things have blossomed ever since. So thank you guys. It was wonderful. And now we have another presentation. I would like to have Mrs. Canning and Mrs. Henderson come up. In this country, we celebrate the founding fathers. We learn about them in our history books. And we do that because of the direction they gave the country and started us all on the right road. In this school, these 3 ladies are kind of like the remaining founding mothers of our school who started us on the direction 17 years ago. And so, it's very appropriate that we turn the microphone over to Mrs. Henderson first.
I said I think I need a step stool. Oh, okay. Okay, 17 years, Judy, have gone by in the blink of an eye. I remember the very first time I laid eyes on you. And I remember your warm and welcoming attitude. But I didn't come to talk about you and I came to talk about you and your students. Over the past 17 years as your colleague, I have seen you protect, love, and value each student. You've worked with seriousness, humor, and joy, many times saying, "They are just like a recipe. I'm just going to add a little more love, a little more firmness, or a little more salt or pepper to make sure that recipe becomes perfect." During the past 17 years, you've made the students in your room feel special and unique. You've dedicated your career to helping students increase their abilities and acquire knowledge, never doubting their desire to achieve or their potential to be successful. You have accepted each student respecting their individual needs, abilities, and talents, not something that every teacher can do, but you have appreciated every one of your students for what they are. For 17 years at the BFCCPS, students have had you, a teacher of excellence, as their teacher. I know how you are with children, not just because of the many times I've walked into your classroom, but because of the many times we have worked together as you brought your reading buddies to my classroom so that you and they could share your knowledge, your interests, and your excitement about learning different things. As a colleague, it has been rewarding to work beside you because I have also learned as much from you as your students. We will really miss you, Judy.
Bonjour, les amis. Sorry, I just love that. I actually met Mrs. Bergesen for one of the very first times here in this room, on this stage. Believe me, you won't believe what we did. We put sunglasses on, and they played the theme to Mission Impossible the night the school opened, and out we came. And in many ways, it was a Mission Impossible, but not with Mrs. Bergesen by our sides. So, on a serious note, I want to start by sharing a quote that reminds me of Mrs. Bergesen from one of the best books I've ever read, my personal favorite, called Tuesdays with Morrie. The author, Mitch Albom, writes about his college professor, his mentor, who he says understood me when I was young and searching for who I was. So I love this passage from the end of the book. I'll share it with you. Have you ever really had a teacher? One who saw you as a raw but precious thing, a jewel that with wisdom could be polished to a proud shine. If you are lucky enough to find your way to such teachers, you will always find your way back. Sometimes it is only in your head and in your memories. For those of us who have been lucky enough to have Judy Bergesen as a teacher, that quote rings true. We are her precious jewels. Many of you got to spend every day with her for a whole year, but guess what? I was even luckier than you. Something you may not know is that I taught 4th grade with Mrs. Bergesen back when the school opened. So I got to spend 10 years teaching alongside of her as my partner. I was only 23 years old when I started teaching here. Okay, later on, I guarantee everybody in A who says I look exactly the same as back then. Okay. But on a serious note, I was much younger and far less experienced, and Mrs. Bergesen quickly became a mentor to me. She's been a trusted colleague, a role model, a treasured friend, and truly an inspiration to me in every way. The incredible connection you have with Roy and the friendships you have with your daughters and now your granddaughters is something I've tried to emulate in my own life, and I thank you for that. We asked your students for some of their favorite things about you, and I chose a few of their responses to share. One of you said, she makes us feel like we're the most important person in the room. I think Sarabi is here. She said your fashion sense reigns supreme. And look, I got all dolled up today for Mrs. Bergesen. She's proud of me. Somebody else said, I love how she'd be singing and dancing even when she was really mad at us. The elder Schwab, who isn't here, but his younger brother can take credit for this if he wants, said she likes to sing, dance, and tell jokes. But some of the kids didn't get her jokes, but I did. So I like that one. And from the Winokur family, Jared, I'm going to embarrass you. I've been waiting all year. Mrs. Bergesen hated to give homework, and she only did it because she was forced to. How can we not love this woman for that? And don't worry, I am adopting that as part of my teaching philosophy. So I did adopt so much of who Mrs. Bergesen is into who I am after so many years of teaching with her. I often use a sing-song voice in French classes, which works really well, maybe except for last Monday on the last day of kindergarten when I said silence in Mrs. Bergesen style, and then suddenly there were like 10 different kindergartners who were aspiring opera singers and yodelers going silence, and it backfired. But for the most part, this works. So what I mean to say is that Mrs. Bergesen taught me many of the same things that she taught you. It is okay to be your own person. Be funny, be silly, be musical, be emotional. Be who you are and be proud of it. I have her to thank for who I am as an educator and as a person. So Mitch Albom wrote a whole book to his mentor, Morrie. I decided in honor of Mrs. Bergesen's retirement, I would write a poem to her as my mentor and try to express how we all feel about her influence on us. Okay, here goes my attempt at poetry. We number hundreds her students, children of her intellect, beneficiaries of her passion for teaching. So vital this privilege of having her influence on our lives. She was not just a teacher, but a mentor, a life coach, a friend, wise enough to be our guide, a trusted counselor. She let us dream of what we can be. Each person she taught, loved, treasured, made to feel special, growing under her guidance, inspired by her creativity. Our future is so bright. Mrs. Bergesen, your legacy will never end. This beautiful book is from all of us, and it lets you know how we feel about you as a teacher. Thank you so much for leaving FSPA all those years ago to be a founding teacher of this most amazing charter school with me. I can't talk anymore and I don't know who's next, so I'm going to give this to Dr. O'Malley.
How you doing? That's not true. She's getting very emotional, and she should. It was a special, special tribute. Great thing about teachers, the most special thing about teachers, is they don't just influence a class in front of them, but they influence every class they ever had. And that influence goes well beyond school. And all the adults in this room could tell you about teachers they had. Mrs. Bergesen is that kind of a teacher. And right now, we're going to have some alumni come up and talk about that. So, if you would please come up.
In 4th grade, we did the Middle Ages. And of course, it's always fun to get up on stage and do whatever you're going to do, but it's even more fun when you learn it and your teacher comes up and she does it with you. Still remember the singing stance. And I still remember everything, so thank you very much for being my teacher and my mentor. Mrs. Bergesen today, I was told to make it short and sweet. And as I was thinking short and sweet over and over again, deciding what to say, it dawned on me that my 4th grade year is very similar to this phrase. My 4th grade experience in Mrs. Bergesen was very similar. With her love of Broadway and the arts, our immigration assembly, and all the poetry we made in the medieval feast, 4th grade went by so fast and it was almost too short. And, like Mrs. Bergesen, it was very sweet, it was amazing, and I'll never forget it. At that, Mrs. Bergesen, all that's left to say is thank you, and I'll never, thank you, and that I, along with the rest of the BFCCPS community, will miss you greatly again. Thank you.
So I had Miss Bergesen 3 years ago, and she's really the teacher that had the most influence on me out of all the teachers. She's a wonderful person, and I wrote a poem, and it says, Mrs. Bergesen. I don't know how one 4th grade teacher could be so many things at once to a little kid like me. You were Julie Andrews. Every lesson was a song. You are still a proper lady in a beautiful garden of books. Sometimes you are a mermaid in regal blue and green, sea glass around your neck with a lovely coral reef. And sometimes I could have sworn you were Her Majesty the Queen. Your fashion sense still reigns supreme. And besides the long lessons of history and geometry, you taught me how to view the world and love all that I see. You taught me more about the joy there is when one can read. So thank you, Mrs. Bergesen, for everyone you were to me and everything you'll always be.
My name is Alex Jackson. I, along with many other students here today, was in Mrs. Bergesen's 4th grade class. 4th grade was 4 years ago for me, but I can still remember it like it was yesterday. One thing I will never forget about 4th grade was the music. I can remember Mrs. Bergesen was always singing. She would always incorporate a song into whatever lesson we were doing. I remember walking into class every morning and being greeted by a warm smile, and there would usually be a song to follow. Mrs. Bergesen, you were an amazing teacher, and I am so pleased that I had the opportunity to be in your class. Even though I have already left, I will miss having the ability to go and visit you. Mrs. Bergesen, you will be missed, and I wish you the best in your retirement.
Hi. Mrs. Bergesen, I had you so long ago, I can't even count the amount of years. When I look back to your class, all I can remember is the songs, dances, and your wonderful fashion sense. You were one of the first teachers that made me think about being a teacher, and because of your guidance throughout my college years, I have graduated and am going to become a teacher. So I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for me, and thank you for being such a wonderful mentor.
I never had you. I feel unfortunate that I never did. I am here speaking on behalf of the Garcia family, Ruth and Rachel Garcia, and this is what they write. Several years ago, my daughter entered BFCCPS as a fourth grader. As a late lottery pick, she was placed in Mrs. Bergesen's class. Since this was her first time in a public school, it be during a difficult transition for our daughter, and for bringing sunshine into the room. We wish her the very best in her retirement, and may it be filled with much sunshine for her family, for her and her family. I too am here. Now, if I can't make this through without crying, bear with me. I'm here on behalf of another student who wrote a letter in for Mrs. Bergesen. It says, Dear Mrs. Bergesen, in the fall of 1995, we started an adventure, a charter school based on parents' vision and the importance of virtues. The school was named the Ben Franklin Classical Charter School and based on 4 pillars. Dr. Schobel was the headmaster. Most students who attended the school had been siblings in the school, making it a small and caring community where everyone knew everyone's name. Mrs. Bergesen, you were and are a major part of that family. You have helped mold the past with the present. Here are some memories from a former student in your first class at BFCCPS. Remember when? You taught the oldest students in class because the school only went up to 4th grade. That was when the school consisted of 2 kindergarten classes, 2 first grade classes, 4th grade. Remember when? We had to clean the building and the supplies before the school could even open. Remember when? The school only occupied half of the building. Remember when Mrs. Bowman was proposed to during our winter show, which you directed. Recess was in the courtyard with chalk, balls, jump ropes, overseen by parent volunteers. Remember when everyone had to bring their own lunches? Remember when students were substitutes? Remember when, not much, did I say teachers or parents? Parents were substitutes. Remember when teachers taught all the specials, you taught drama to all the grades. Remember when my brother called you Mrs. Burger King? I remember all those things with very fond memories of an enthusiastic, kind, patient, loving, dedicated, and musical and optimistic 4th grade teacher. Thanks for all of your support, guidance, and fun. I hope the next chapter of your life is filled with smiles, laughter, like you have done to all your students. Love, Alan Hurstein, class of 2000. I just want to say a couple of lines. It has been a pleasure getting a chance to work right next to Mrs. Bergesen for the past 8 years and have known for 11. I would like to say one thing. One virtue that Mrs. Bergesen has shown me over these years. She has shown me the virtue of justice. While she has been a colleague, someone who I work with, a mentor, someone who has taught me the craft of teaching, a sister who I sometimes occasionally disagree with, a mother, someone who has given me much advice and wisdom. She has been a friend who has shown me kindness and compassion. We all know what it's like when a friend is out sick. It's lonely and sad on the playground. I have gotten that same feeling every day when Mrs. Bergesen has been out sick. I am lonely and sad. But I would like for everyone to give their friend a hug today and say what Mrs. Bergesen and I say every Friday night when we leave each other. We hug each other, we say I love you, and we'll see you on Monday. Thank you.
The things I wish I knew. Mrs. Burger King? I wish I knew that. You know, there's more to retirement, Mrs. Bergesen, than writing to-do lists for Mr. Bergesen. In retirement, you need to prepare just like when you prepare a class. You need to prepare for retirement, and we have, as we always do, because we're a very thoughtful school, Mrs. Hogan and Mrs. Paré have prepared and are going to present a little retirement kit for you.
After a wonderful year, we know it will be hard for you to adjust to life without us. So in anticipation of a rocky transition, we have created a retirement survival kit for you. The first thing you'll need in your basket is a basket, so you don't become a basket case.
Next, we got you crayons to color all your days bright and sunny. Next, we got you a watch. Your time is yours now. Enjoy it. Your survival kit needs some marbles, just in case you lose yours.
Your
survival kit also needs some fun dip, since you will be leaving all of us fun dips behind.
We got you rose-colored glasses. We hope you only remember the good in all of us.
Your friends at St. Clair School for Performing Arts are treating you to a performance of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And they got you a uniform just in case you decide to return to your first career. Your survival kit definitely needs a pack of stickers. You have given out so many over the years, we wanted to refill your supply. We got you markers. Your retirement marks the beginning of a new chapter. Enjoy coloring it brightly. We got you batteries for your survival kit, so you can just keep going and going and going. We know that theater is a love of yours, and we hope that it is a big part of your retirement. The entire BFCCPS community wants to treat you to a wonderful dinner and show in Providence. Hopefully, this will take your mind off missing us. But if all else fails and you miss us too much, we got you a 1 free day of substitute teacher coupon. Since you like rhymes and singing them too, here's a haiku that was written for you. Good luck as you go, singing and dancing away, retirement joy.
You know, there's many things we can pretend in life, but one thing we can't pretend is the kind of love and affection you've seen here this morning. Ms. Bergesen is a really special person. That makes her a really special teacher. And she has touched this whole school's existence from day one to now. We're going to miss her, but we will remember her for being the special person that she is. And I'd like to call her up now for kind of like a final presentation to our school.
you that have participated in making this an amazing memory for me and my family. This assembly, I know, took a lot of work. It was just a funny feeling for me to watch my students sing and dance and move and get up and down and not to have any part of it at all. That relinquishing of power, and I guess that was going through my mind a lot. These years have held so many joyful opportunities for me, and I look on each of the challenges as an opportunity. There have been so many more rich and rewarding times being a teacher at this BFCCPS community than I could ever tell you. As a teacher at this school, you are given so many chances to use your own natural gifts and talents. You are given so many chances for collegiality. You are given so many chances to make a difference in education. But most importantly is you are given so many chances to love your students. I thank you all from the bottom of my heart.
You know, we can't finish an assembly for Mrs. Bergesen without a song. Because her song has echoed in the school for 17 years and for some more years to come. We have a wonderful teacher who has joined us the last couple of years, Mrs. Monty. We have tremendous chorus. And this is going to be their song for a wonderful teacher.
Moments so deep.
behalf of everyone, I want to thank everyone. A lot of work went into this assembly, and I want to thank everyone. But I hope, Mrs. Burgess, you saw just how much you were loved at this school and how much we will miss you. This is a continuing story, not the end of a story. It's the story of a great teacher in a great school. So thank you all. Now a little message. We have to go back to school. We are going to exit today through that door over there. That's so we won't trample poor Mr. Bergesen and